Hey everyone, how you doing? Thank you for joining. Welcome to episode 16. And today we're going to be answering this question. Is the legacy of slavery the cause of the breakdown of the Black American family today in 2024? It's a big question. Is it? Is it not? What is it? Let's look at it. Let's get into it. Okay. Thank you for joining again. So let's really dive into this. Today, in answering this question, we're going to look at an interview by Thomas Sowell, very well-renowned economist, Black American economist, and he gives his take on what he believes is the breakdown of the Black American family today. So let's listen to what he says, and let's try and analyze this and really see what it is that he's saying, and can we answer this question?
Quote, Black Americans, a group often identified as beneficiaries of the welfare state in America, made considerable economic progress in the 20th century. Fine, of course, but much, if not most, this is the thing with you, the dependent clause is where the sting is, but much, if not most, of this progress was prior to the massive expansion of the American welfare state, close quote. That is so I want to say counterintuitive because we hear so much about African American progress since civil rights and the establishment of the welfare state that it really has become a kind of American intuition. Explain yourself, Dr. Sowell.
Well, as of 1940, 87% of black households were in poverty. Over the next 20 years, that declined to 47%. This is all prior to the civil rights laws, prior to the social welfare policies of the Johnson administration.
Okay, very good point. So that's point number one. Prior to the civil rights, before the civil rights, Black poverty declined by almost 40%, or pretty much 40%, right? So in other words, he's making the argument that even before civil rights, Black people were getting better, right? In terms of getting out of poverty and taking advantage of the boom that was happening after the Second World War.
Over the next 20 years, it fell an additional 18 points. But that was just the same trend continuing at a reduced rate. Affirmative action is even worse because, as I remember, I'm trying to think now, the numbers. I think it was something like, poverty rate was something like 30% among black households before affirmative action. And a decade after affirmative action, it was 29%. This is not the same as the 40% decline that occurred before there were any civil rights laws and before there was any social welfare state.
40% decline in poverty.
So what happened between 1940 and 1960 was the post-Second World War economic boom.
It was
right?
but it was also the massive migration of blacks out of the South.
So they're getting better education and jobs.
That's right.
Okay. Now, you mention cultural and social retrogressions. Again, I'm quoting you. Arguably the most consequential of these was the decline in two-parent families.
Yes.
Close quote. Explain that one. Among African Americans.
Yes.
We're still talking about African Americans.
Well, you know, when they talk about things like this, they talk about the legacy of slavery.
Right.
And I argue, well, empirically, it's not that, it's the legacy of the welfare state. Because as of 1960, which is almost 100 years after slavery ended, the majority of black kids were being raised in two-parent households. But within one generation after the welfare state, that had dropped down to a minority. So that the majority of black kids today are raised in one-parent households. When you think about it, I mean, centuries of slavery and generations of Jim Crow did not destroy the black family, but one generation of the welfare state did.
Okay, So I think that's very clear what he believes, right? He's saying that, as you heard, that it had, you know, the welfare state had to be the cause of it because prior to the welfare state, black families were together, and then it got destroyed. So, in other words, it has nothing to do with the legacy of slavery, like a lot of people say, or particularly white liberals and even some black liberals say. But in fact, it was this creation of the welfare state. Okay. So I'm going to challenge Dr. Thomas Sowell. Now, everything he said is correct. The numbers he gave, the stuff, and yes, the breakdown of the black family really took its turn, as he says in the 1960s. So therefore, that must be the cause, not the legacy of slavery. I'm arguing that, yes, the legacy of slavery is what led to those policies that led to the breakdown of the black family. Okay? Hear what I'm saying. So the key thing that this rests upon is whether the people who created the welfare society, which, you know, was pretty much the liberals, the Democrats, right? The question is whether they did it on purpose, knowing that it would cause the breakdown of the black family or not. Do you see what I'm saying? So let's, I try to find a point where he actually talked about whether the intentions of the people who created the welfare state, which is basically the white power structure, okay, whether those intentions were good and bad, because I think that's where my case rests, is whether those intentions were good or bad. So let's look at two other conservatives, very well-known conservatives, and let's see what they say, right? So we have Larry Elder, who came on the Breakfast Club, and let's listen carefully to what he says regarding this issue.
The number one social problem in America, by far, is the epidemic not of COVID, but of fatherlessness. 70% of black kids today enter the world without a father in the home, married to the mother, up from 25% back in 1965. Now 25% of white kids enter the world today without a father in the home, married to the mother. And the stats are clear. Even Barack Obama once cited them. If you're raised without a dad, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. What's happened? In the mid-'60s, with I think the best of intentions, a Democrat named Lyndon Johnson.
Boom. In the late 60s, with the best of intentions,
launched what he called the War on Poverty.
President Johnson, former President Johnson, launched what he called the War on Poverty. The key point is with good intentions. So in other words, he's saying that, oh, they meant well. They were trying to help. You understand what I'm saying? And it went haywire. They were trying to help. So this is a very key point of the intention behind the creation of the welfare state. And he says it was good intentions. Let's play it again. This is very important. This is going to show my point, I think.
9 were likely to drop out of school, and 20 times were likely to end up in jail. What's happened? In the mid-'60s, with I think the best of intentions, a Democrat named Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. And since
the best of intentions, you heard it. So he thinks that Johnson had the best intentions, which means that he was trying to what? He was trying to help black people. He was trying to do something for black people. So he created the welfare society. And I'm arguing that the intentions were not good. He's saying they were. And the argument here on whether the breakdown of the black family was as a result of the legacy of slavery is based, in my estimation, in my opinion, on the intentions of the people who created the welfare state. He's saying they're good intentions, right? Let's go to another black conservative, right? This is Jason Riley. He wrote a book. I think he even has a book called Please Stop Helping Us or something like that. But this particular book, he was interviewed about this particular book called False Black Power. Okay, let's hear what he says.
But yes, I do get that. And again, it's because we have accepted this narrative that what we see today in Black America is a result of the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow. And what I argue in the book is that what we see today is the legacy of the Great Society, of the legacy of 60s programs that were well-intentioned.
Bam! Were well-intentioned. You see, this is the key point. I hope you guys are with me on this, man. I hope you guys are with me. The intention of the people who put in this act is very, very important. Now, you might say to me, okay, Dwayne, how do you know it wasn't well-intentioned? You know, obviously they were trying to help people and stuff like that, right? Well, let's look at what Thomas Sowell says again. So we're going to go here to the beginning here. I just want you guys to pick this up, right? This is how I know it was not well-intentioned, okay? And we're going straight to the mouth of Thomas Sowell. Stay with me on this, guys. Stay with me on this. So let's go here and get this video going. Listen to what he says.
Well, you're creating a situation where if the man stays there, the government will not give the woman welfare.
Okay, this is the big reason why the whole fatherless family thing started skyrocketing. Because the government paid the woman to not have the father there. That's what he just said. Let's just go back.
Well, you're creating a situation where if the man stays there, the government will not give the woman welfare. And if he leaves, it will. And so they're paying. When you pay people not to get married, more people don't get married.
Okay, you heard that? When you pay people, let me not put it on that screen. When you pay people not to get married, more people will not get married. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm saying is the people who created the welfare state knew exactly what they were doing. In other words, they knew that if they pay people money not to get married, they will get married, especially when those people are poor. Now, earlier on, Thomas Sowell gave you the statistic, and he's absolutely right on it. You see, these guys, the Black conservatives, by the way, are correct on their facts. They're just wrong in their analysis of the facts, right? And that's what I'm presenting here today. So earlier, he gave the statistics that between 1940 and 1960, the Black poverty rate went from 87% to 40, right? So it was going down. Blacks were improving. And as he says, because of the great migration, more opportunities, jobs, and stuff like that, right? So people were poor, even though it went down from 80 to 40. 40% is still high. Today, it's considered high, the poverty rate for Blacks, which is about around 22%. That's still considered pretty high. So in the 1960s, it was around 47%, as he said, which means that half of Black people were beneath the poverty, were at the poverty line or below. So in other words, they were poor. And therefore, here comes the government giving them money, incentivize them to do a particular action. And they did it. And it still goes on to this day. Okay? It still goes on to this day. So the question is, did the government not know that that policy would create fatherless families? Guys, I hope you guys are with me on this. Listen to this.
Well, you're creating a situation where if the man stays there, the government will not give the woman welfare, and if he leaves, it will. And so they're paying. When you pay people not to get married, more people don't get married.
And you telling me, Thomas Sowell, that the government is, or the people who came up with this idea were not aware of that fact? You were just aware of it, and you don't tell me that those people were aware. Hey, you know, if we pay these people not to get married, and these are poor people and they need money, chances are some of them are going to take the bait. And that's exactly what happened, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys understand where I'm coming at. I'm not disputing these Black conservatives on the facts that, yes, definitely fatherless families really got kicked off in the 1960s with the creation of the Great Society. Don't get me wrong. What I am saying is that the people who came up with that policy were very much well aware of that. So, in other words, they had bad intentions. This was another attempt to destroy, to limit, to marginalize, to keep Black people down. And that is the legacy, and that is because of the legacy of slavery. Do you see my point? Now, the Great Society of the 1960s was not the only thing that created the fatherless families. It was definitely a big part of it. But what happened later on? Let me just go to full screen here so that I can just speak freely. But what happened later on is the question. In the 1970s, you had abortion. And I know a lot of people are going to be upset with me saying this because, I'm saying that abortion, in my opinion, is another program that was brought into place in order to continue to destroy the Black family. And in fact, poor families, let's be clear, because it didn't only affect Black people, it affected Black people more disproportionately. It also affected whites and Hispanics. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's exclusively Black, but Blacks definitely had the majority. It impacted them far greater, which is why today 75% of Black families, Black people are growing up without two parents in the house. So, the 1970s, you had abortion. Abortion was another thing that came to destroy, in my opinion, the Black family. In the 1980s, you had crack cocaine, gangs, gang violence, guns, proliferation of guns. This also contributed towards fatherless families. And then in the 1990s, you had the 3 strikes and you're out, mass incarceration. And when you put all these things together, these are the reasons why the Black family has been destroyed, as well as, other more psychological aspects, propaganda, and stuff like that, added to it. And these are the things that destroyed the Black family altogether. And it's because of the legacy of slavery, because these things were all done with bad intentions. That's the point. You remember, they all said, it was with good intentions. They were trying to help. No. They were not trying to help, because all those policies that I just told you, the creation of the welfare state, in particular, paying Black women, Black mothers, paying mothers to, not have men in the house. Then you have abortion coming in the 1970s. Then you have the crack cocaine. Then you have, in the 1990s, the mass incarceration. These were all continuation of policies that were aimed at destroying poor people in particular, but obviously poor people, it would be disproportionately affected Black people. That was the goal of these programs. These programs were not good intentions, ladies and gentlemen. They were bad intentions. Now, let me end it by saying this. If they were bad intentions, because that's where the key is of understanding whether these things are a result of the legacy of slavery or whether they are just simply, no, this was a bad policy that someone came up with. Oh, stupid you. No, Thomas Sowell has already told you, if you're going to pay people who are poor to act a certain way, chances are they're going to act that way. Okay? And these politicians and these policymakers are not stupid. They know what they're doing when they're writing these policies. So the question is that the intentionality, and this is where I think all these Black conservatives are wrong. Their analysis of this is wrong. I think their facts are spot on. I agree with them. Fatherlessness is a major problem in the Black community, no doubt. I agree with you 100%. But if you tell me it has nothing to do with the legacy of slavery, the legacy of the Black experience in this country, then I think you are missing the big picture of what is going on here. And I think that's my issue with the Black conservatives. I don't know, but this is just the way I see it, and they said it in their own words. Why would you say these are good intentions? You know, are you saying these people are stupid? They're just, oh, what should we do? Should we just write a check to the mother so the father? No, they knew what they were doing. I'm starting to repeat myself, but I just want to make the point real clear. So, as far as I'm concerned, the breakdown of the Black family in America is a continuation of the legacy of slavery discrimination in this country. No doubt about it. It's a continuation of it. One last point I want to make on this is this, to really bring everything together as best as I can. So here's the thing. After slavery, 1865 was the end of slavery. From 1865 up until the creation of the welfare states in the 1960s, it is a very important period. Some progress was made, but ultimately, if 95% of Black Americans who were in 5 or 6 states in the Deep South, if they start to move out in vast numbers, it's called the Great Migration because so many Black Americans moved out. Why were they moving out? They were moving out because they were running away from the terrorism that they were experiencing in the South, okay? And also the prospects of maybe a better life and a future in the northern cities. When they came to the northern cities, okay, it wasn't like, oh, welcome, 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 welcome. No, it wasn't like that. There was straight up legal segregation, Jim Crow, legal segregation in these cities, because there's always been this issue between whites and blacks in this country where whites have, the white power structure, I should say, the white power structure have always been trying to figure out, what are we going to do with these people? And when blacks started to push for their civil rights and being able to vote and being so-and-so, so-and-so, and these things came, I think a decision was made by the white power structure. Okay, we're going to destroy them. We're going to break them up. And the way to do it is to start by breaking up the families. And therefore, I'm sorry, but the reason why the Black family today is in the situation it's in is because of the legacy of slavery. Now, you may say to me, okay, well, you know, blacks have a choice. You know, they don't have to take drugs. They don't have to do anything to go to jail. They don't have to do this. They don't have to do that. But again, I played what he said to you. You know, when people are poor and they are discriminated against and they're marginalized and they grow up in tough conditions, yes, you're going to have the few who break out of that. Don't get me wrong, for whatever reason. But generally speaking, you can bet on it that there are going to be a significant number of those people who fall victim to those policies that are put into place. And that's exactly what happened in Black America, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, I'm preaching. I didn't mean to preach. I just wanted to make this a quick video. But I think this is an important point to bring out and see. And I'd be very interested to see what the comments are. I know that a lot of people love Thomas Sowell and think that he's great. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate in the comments. But anyway, I don't care. Watch this video again and really understand the point that I'm making. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Be good, be strong, and keep learning. Peace.